Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more.
Thirsty Thursday, the best day of the week. Happy to report I'm still alive. It's still kicking, still breathing. This is the Drink O'Clock Podcast. I am your host, Rob Valincius, and I have the pleasure, the absolute pleasure. And I should have asked your cat's name before we started, because we could have threw him in there. But I have Gabriel Morrow with me now. Gabriel. You got a lot of interesting shit going on that I thought would make for a good podcast, especially because we're in that tax season type. Well, most people are trying to do their taxes now to get a refund already, but I wait until the end. But welcome to the podcast, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, and for the record, this little guy's name's Felix, because we always got to pay our attention to the kitty cat, because no matter how much my legal issues are, he's very important to me.
Felix, it's a good cat name. I like it.
Yeah.
So, all right, before we get into all of the crazy legal issues you had, walk me through growing up, man. You're from the U.S., you moved to Canada in 2020, but talk to me about, where you came from and what life was like before you made the jump internationally.
Well, originally I lived in Cleveland, Tennessee, and my life was pretty mundane there. Stayed with my grandparents, helped them out a lot until I was in my late 20s, early 30s. That's whenever I first started looking into moving to Canada with my wife, because I'd met her through Facebook. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I guess you could say I had your typical Cleveland, Tennessee lifestyle until I met her, and whenever I started looking into moving abroad, because I didn't have the money to move her to the States. She has a lot of medical issues, things like that, and it just wasn't practical to move her to the States. So yeah. I wanted to be with her, so I moved to Canada, and it's definitely been a tough life since I moved to Canada, but it's also been a growing experience. I've grown a lot as a person, and I've learned a lot.
So what before we get into the craziness, what are some differences between Cleveland, Tennessee and Canada? Where in Canada are you? Like, what area?
Englehart, Ontario, which is pretty far north. And probably the single most noticeable difference would be the climate. Like right now, it's let me see what the temperature is outside right now, actually, because I know it's pretty cold. It is currently -5 degrees Fahrenheit.
Jesus Christ,
but
dude.
I've seen it get down to like -40 outside, and with the wind chills, you might get -50, 60, something like that. So it can get pretty cold out there.
I'm not going to complain about the 33 degrees we had in Philly today, because I was cold as shit. -5 is nuts, and -50 is just... I mean, does everything just freeze? Like, how do you even open doors when it's -50?
Well, I mean, the doors themselves, usually you got to be careful and make sure you get all the snow off away from the doors and stuff, because otherwise it can freeze up. I mean, a perfect example is my mother-in-law's truck today. Her back thing on her truck froze, so we couldn't even get it open. I was trying to open it because we was trying to get a dresser in it and stuff, but I couldn't open it because it's froze shut. So we're gonna have to wait to get the dresser. And I didn't want to break the handle off of the back of the pickup truck because that costs a lot of money to fix. But that handle was going to give before that ice on that door was going to give.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I saw a video on TikTok and I was laughing about it. It's like, I think it was someone that lived in Canada, or it might have been someone that lived in the northern U.S. I think it was Canada, though. And they're like, No, you know what it was? It was Alaska, and it was like move to Alaska. They said, and like they're showing their door, and it's just iced. The whole door is frozen shut, and ice had come in through the door jam, and was just frozen from the top of the door all the way down. And I'm like, yeah, nah, I'm good, man. I'm good.
I mean, overall, though, I mean, as long as you wear good clothing, you can always stay pretty warm because I've actually found that if you put on enough clothing in certain situations, you can actually start to sweat outside, even whenever it's like 20 below, if you put too much clothing on. So it's really a matter of the type and quality of clothing you put on, but it's also a bit annoying to layer up and all that.
The wifey just she was at Costco for me, and it was a running joke because I probably haven't owned a coat of any kind since I was 12, 13, when my mom would buy me coats. As an adult, I've purchased a pea coat, which is like, fancy coat for when you go out, but I didn't own like an everyday coat. I would just wear hoodies. That's just, and like zip ups, like that's just my thing. It's always been my thing. I run hot, and over the past couple of years as I've aged, that has changed. I've started to get pretty fucking cold. So she was at Costco and found like a nice jacket for me, and I've been wearing that the past couple of days because it's been cold as shit here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, though, we may have bad winters here, but the summers are pretty decent here compared to Tennessee. Now, Tennessee summers are very hot and humid, but here where I'm at, you may get 2 or 3 days that are like insanely hot and humid, but otherwise it's pretty decent temperatures here. I mean, temperatures in maybe the 80s are pretty common in the summer and usually not too humid, but there's a bit of variability. Sometimes you get days where it might get into 100 and it might get humid days, but they're not too often.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem in the north, just in general. I feel like our seasons. I mean, at least for you, that's pretty good. But in Philly, our seasons are like drastic. Winter, it's cold, really cold, and then in the summer, it gets really hot. There's no like middle ground. Fall's okay typically. Like our fall this year was pretty tame. Like, I mean, there were some days where it was still 75, 80 degrees in fall, up through October. And then all of a sudden it went to like 40 degrees within like a week. It was kind of a drastic change this year, but
I mean,
kind of is what it is.
well, here fall isn't too bad. The spring can be a bit messy because usually you get a lot of snow that built up over the winter, and sometimes you can get a little bit of flooding depending on your location and stuff if it melts too fast. But the
Yeah.
summers are nice because they usually have not too far from here, there's a few lakes, and they have cabins near the lake, and you sometimes get a lot of these rich people and other celebrities and stuff that sometimes like to come and stay in those cabins in the summer. And it's actually a pretty nice place to go if you like camping and stuff. It's a great place to spend your summer.
Yeah, I'm a tech guy. Me and camping don't typically go hand in hand. I'm also not the manliest outdoor person. So, my fat ass enjoys being inside in the heat or the air conditioning and chilling. But
I'm kind of pretty similar. I mean, I do walk outside in this town sometimes and go to the store and stuff because this is a small town. I mean, there's only like 1,000 people living in this town.
wow, I probably have 1,000 people living in my neighborhood. Yeah, we're Northeast Philly, man. So it's not center city or in the city. We're on the outskirts. But let me ask you this before we get into your situation. What is the healthcare like in Canada? I know you said your wife is got medical issues, and I know obviously in the States, insurance and hospitals, and there's just malpractice when it comes to screwing people. But what's what's it like up there?
I mean, in general, I've from what I've seen in both the states and here, both systems have areas that they can be improved upon. I mean, most Canadians, if you say stuff about their healthcare, they get defensive and stuff. But if I'm being honest, I mean, there is wait times, especially in certain parts of the country, like Northern Ontario, where you may have to wait a while for a procedure. Or it's like if you want to go and get a knee surgery, you will wait several months. But if it's a life-saving procedure, Usually it's pretty much free, and usually they will get you in quickly. So if you had a heart attack, they will get you to a heart specialist relatively quickly. But if you need a knee replacement from let's say where you had an injury or something or whatever, you may wait a while for that. So it really just depends on your exact situation. Now, here, healthcare is mostly free. I mean, you still pay for prescriptions and stuff, despite what people may think in the States. Not everything medically is free, but usually prescriptions are a bit cheaper here. But in the States now, if you don't have a good job, you are totally screwed if you happen to break your leg or something. But here you're safe. So it depends. Like if you have a good job, the States is probably better. If you're healthy, the States is better. But here, if you're not healthy and you have long-term medical issues like diabetes, things like that, Canada is probably a better choice. But it really depends on everyone's situation, which would be better. But to say that one's better than the other, it depends on your situation. I mean, the grass isn't always greener in one country or another.
That's true. That's true. All right, talk to me, man. What walk us through your experience, 2020 hits. Walk us through that experience with your 2020 tax refund and, how it was handled.
Well, I mean,
and explain the situation first, like kind of how this all came to be. I think where we'll start.
I got married in February of 2020 to my wife, and we sent in the paperwork to get for immigration in March of 2020. I basically came to Canada as a visitor in September of 2020 during the height of COVID because under the exemption I could travel to Canada because I was married. So I traveled to Canada and basically stayed with my mother-in-law in Kirkland Lake there for a while. And eventually I got permanent residency in January of 2021. And at that stage, we moved over to Timmins, Ontario. And once we moved to Timmins, Ontario, around March of that year, I filed my U.S. tax return because I'd worked most of the 2020 in the U.S. and I was due an $1,800 refund where I'd overpaid taxes and stuff. So I filed it, and I'm thinking, well, I mean, it's not a big deal if I didn't receive a refund. I thought it was just lost in the mail, which, given the mail delays at that time, international mail was really delayed because there was a lot of COVID restrictions with the post office. They couldn't have a certain number of people there, and it was just a total mess. Mail was a total mess. So somehow or another, the IRS had flagged my return as possible IDT refund fraud, and on top of that, had lost my original return. So I'm like, but I didn't know that at the time, and I just thought it was lost in the mail. I mean, that's what anybody would think, I suppose, in that situation. And I didn't really bother to pursue it because I'm enjoying my life here. My life is totally okay right now. So I'm like, I'm not going to bother with it. It's not a big deal. I'm going to go on with my life. But I continued to file my taxes. In 2022, I mail in my taxes. Didn't expect a refund, so didn't pay any attention to it. Come to 2023, and H&R Block switches to e-filing taxes. And I'm like, okay, initially I'm thinking, well, that will make life easier. I no longer have to pay for postage. I no longer have to go to the post office and mail crap out. I can just do it electronically. But that's whenever I discovered that I needed an ID PIN because they had flagged my 2020 return and every return after that as possible identity theft refund fraud. So in 2023, I started making a lot of phone calls. I was also technically due a refund from a legal settlement with my former employee in the States for 2023 because they paid it out in W-2 and withheld some, so I was due a refund. So I spent a lot of time on the phone in 2023 with the IRS, and I managed to get 2021 and 2022 and 2023 fixed, those tax years, but I could not, for whatever reason, get 2020 resolved, and the reason I couldn't get it resolved is because they had also lost my return, but I was too busy talking to them about the possible IDT. I didn't know they had also lost the return. So at this stage, I'm going into 2024, and I'm starting to look into how do I get a lawyer because I'm not having much luck talking on the phone. I spent nearly 6, 7, 8 months talking on the phone with the IRS, and I'm not getting anywhere. So I'm like, how do I get a lawyer? And I look into the laws of what allows low-income taxpayers in the states to get access to a lawyer, and I come across the Low-Income Tax Credit Act. And I'm like, well, why can't I use this here in Canada? What's the difference? I'm a taxpayer here in Canada. Everyone in the States is a taxpayer. We're all taxpayers, so why can't I use this? There was nothing in the law restricts the ability of a low-income tax credit to take a case from Canada, other than it just doesn't usually happen.
Yeah.
So I call around and get a hold of the University of Washington, and they take my case on a case-by-case basis. And from there, that they have to generate a report on what clients they took in their geographic location and other general information about how they have done advocacy. And that government report is now being concealed by both the Biden and Trump administration have concealed that report.
That's good. That's handy. So you went through countless frustrations, obviously. What do you think was the biggest frustration? Was it the lack of communication, trying to get a hold of the IRS? I mean, obviously, for normal people, and I can tell you this, I mean, just getting a hold of, unless you're calling like their "I'm gonna pay you right now" line, most of the time you're not getting a real person, or you're getting a voicemail, or you're getting an email address.
I guess probably the biggest frustration is that something that was so simple, like a simple identity theft refund fraud flag, just spiraled into legal questions about a government report and about a government job posting and everything else. It just something so simple spiraled out of control. I mean, if it had been actual identity theft refund fraud, then LifeLock, which at the time my grandpa was paying for a LifeLock subscription with me, would have covered or helped me sort it out. But because it was possible IDT refund fraud, it was actually worse from my perspective and from my personal experience than if it had been actual identity theft refund fraud. So it's just that's what frustrates me the most about this.
Why do you think they flagged it as possible? Because you were getting 1,800 back, or like, why do you think they did that?
Well, realistically, they got various systems that flag refunds based off what, like suspicious activity and stuff. And I suppose, looking back, I mean, it probably makes sense to flag it because I was moving to Canada, so I had a Canadian address. And before I moved to Canada, I used to have it always deposited directly into the bank account, my refund. But here, I'm moving to Canada. I have a Canadian address all of a sudden on my return, and I'm trying to mail my refund to Canada. So their systems probably think something ain't right and automatically flag it because it's not normal for people to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's why, I mean, for me, I am very thankful for my accountant because, there's all those legal loopholes, and he's always like, listen, I know your business lost, this much money, but if you actually put that, you're going to actually hurt yourself in the long run. This is how you handle business tax losses, how tax is handled with losses, and this is where you should put it. And I also pay quarterly. So I have a real job, but then I also, I sell and work with Medicare insurance. So with my insurance license, a lot of it's 1099. So, I have to, I don't get tax taken out, so I have to pay taxes. I have the least amount of tax taken out of my main checking, like my main business account, because, one thing my boss always told me is like, hey, you're just giving the government a loan, basically. He's like, you have them take out as little as possible, you'll break even. He's like, it's better than getting a big refund check, at the next year, So I've always done that. Why do you think Americans abroad, right, often feel like an afterthought when it comes to the U.S. tax system?
Because
People in the same situation.
In all honesty, they are. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, they are a big group. There's 10 million of them, but unlike any particular person in the States, like like the state of Pennsylvania, there's those people there are all grouped together and they vote for a single senator. Here, they're spread out. They're a big voting block, but they're spread out. So 2% of each district may have Americans abroad in it. But if you can pass a policy that wins over 3% of the vote but screws over the Americans abroad, then you automatically gain from the standpoint of the Electoral College because, well, 3% of the votes more than 2% in any district, even though you're screwing over 10 million people or however many millions there are Americans abroad. It's depending on who you ask, that number varies, but most people say around 10 million. So basically, that's how it works. I mean, there's no single representative that represents the whole group. So their voice in Congress is limited.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, the tax system's, I mean, it's built to, especially now with a lot of the stuff that Trump has implemented, right? It's designed to protect the one percenters, and typically low income people tend to, make out maybe a little bit or break even, but the middle class is really who gets like absolutely fucked. I mean, I've been middle class my whole life, and I'm typically the one on the end of the pole getting screwed. So at this point, I do whatever I can to avoid getting audited, right? Because I don't feel like dealing with all that, and then have to call my accountant and have him produce all my shit. And then I also just don't feel like dealing with the heat because you don't want to deal with the U.S. And I mean, right now is a weird time because obviously Doge cut a lot of jobs that were in some of those infrastructures, and with some of the new rules. I mean, it's kind of a weird time. I think I was hoping the IRS would just be abolished, but
you know what's ironic about it is the history of this whole expat tax madness. The United States and Eritrea are the only two countries that tax their citizens abroad, and the U.S. has a more insane tax system, but it was actually implemented during the Civil War originally.
Interesting. So why would they have that from the Civil War? Was it because people were defecting to other countries, or?
Well, I mean, Abraham Lincoln thought it was a good idea because he wanted the people who were leaving the country, because a lot of people were fleeing the country because they didn't want to fight in a war. So they fled the country. So he thought, okay, let's tax these people. If they want to flee the country, they can at least pay to support the war effort. And I mean, in theory, that sounded good at the time. But that's how it originally started. And then after the Civil War, they repealed it, the entire tax code. And then back in 1918, they basically revived it and kind of copied the Abraham Lincoln tax code into what would become known as the IRS. Initially, this tax was only on the wealthy, and it only applied and there was a lot of exemption stuff, so it only impacted the wealthy people originally. But the thing about it is most people in Congress did not know about it. And you fast forward to 2008 under Obama, he passes the FATCA and FBAR Act, which were the two big kahunas as far as Americans abroad are concerned. And whenever he passed those, it no longer was just affecting the wealthy. It started affecting the average American abroad. So really, the Americans abroad were screwed over the most by Obama. But I mean, don't get me wrong, it's really both sides that actually caused it, because Trump, he promised to get rid of double taxation for Americans abroad, and there's been no action on his part to fulfill that promise. And by the same token, the other presidents, both the Democrats and Republicans have played a role, but before 2008, it was a fundamentally different situation with respect to the tax code for Americans abroad versus the post-Obama era.
Yeah, I didn't know that. What do you wish more U.S. residents understood about expat taxation and compliance for it? Because I don't know shit. I don't know shit about it, to be honest with you.
I mean, honestly, it's basically for the most part, it's basically, I mean, we don't technically pay, most Americans abroad don't technically pay taxes, but they still have to file. And that filing obligation is complicated. And depending on what you're trying to do, sometimes you do pay. Like here in Canada, there's this program that's set up for people living here called the tax-free savings account. And depending
Yeah.
on who you ask, it's tax-free for people living here, but because Canada doesn't tax it, usually the United States taxes it. So that's kind of defeating the purpose of that program.
I, and it doesn't help that our relations between Canada and the U.S. have been tumultuous with Trump either. What's it like, being an American over in Canada? Do they understand that it's not our fault that
Well, it
crazy
depends on
exists?
I mean, it depends on who you ask. I mean,
Yeah.
some Canadians. I mean, there's a lot of anti-U.S. here in Canada right now, but there's also some people who understand that. I mean, it really depends on who you talk to. I mean, I know here there's like if you go to the grocery store, you'll see where they put flags on the products that came from the United States, so you know which products came from the U.S., which came from Canada, and which were impacted by tariffs, which weren't, and all that stuff. So you know when you go to the grocery store, if you're supporting a Canadian product or a U.S. product, or a combination of the two.
Interesting. And how's the alcohol been? I know that there was a whole thing with whiskey and shit, right?
Well, I mean
The
the
good
alcohol.
stuff.
I mean the alcohol. They did get rid of basically all the U.S. alcohols off the shelf here in Canada. I haven't really been following that as much because I've mostly, I mean, I'm not a big drinker of alcohol, but I mean, plus I've got enough going on. I don't need to get drunk. I'd probably go insane if I got drunk right now. I'd probably be like, revolution in the United States, we abolished the tax code or something if I was to get drunk. So
Revolution.
I don't really need to get drunk. I start a new Boston Tea Party.
So how let's go back a little bit. How did you end up connecting with the university-based tax clinic? What was that process like? Was it arduous, or was it easier than you thought it was going to be? And is it something that most people can utilize if they have issues like yourself?
Well, I don't think most people can utilize it because it's not logistically possible to extend these things outside the United States because there's not a funding for it. Also, I mean, they just don't have the resources to do that. I mean, these tax clinics, like the University of Washington, only handled, I think, like 300 and something cases in 2024, and U.S. expat tax cases are complicated. But as far as
Yeah.
connecting to it, I just got really lucky on that part because originally I called the Tennessee tax clinic because I thought, okay, part of my tax year is in Tennessee. So I reached out to the Tennessee tax clinic and they couldn't help me. So they suggested I reach out to a tax clinic near the border. So I reached out to a tax clinic near the border, and I thought I was originally calling a tax clinic in Washington, D.C., but I was actually calling the University of Washington one. And I didn't know until afterwards, until after they took my case and other things, that, oh, wait a minute, this is unique. My situation's not typical, and apparently I'm the only one who has ever done that. And that's when I started opening up a can of worms.
Well, what do you think? Well, you know what? Break it down for us if you can. What is the Residence-Based Taxation for Americans Abroad Act, and why do you think it's an important fix?
I mean, well, that's one possible solution. There's other solutions, but at a minimum, they need to move to residency-based taxation, which the goal of that is to basically make it where Americans abroad are not taxed like they are now. They are only taxed on U.S. source income when living abroad, like most other countries do. Like if I'm in Canada, if you're a Canadian and you live in the United States, you do not pay taxes to Canada because that's a different country. That would be like Californians paying taxes to Texas just because they was born in Texas. That's not rational.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So what it really does is just make it so that you pay taxes to where you geographically live in terms of your income, which is reasonable. I mean, I am not using the roads in the United States. I am not using any U.S. services for the most part. So why should I pay taxes to the United States or have to file taxes to the United States if I'm not using any U.S. services right now?
It would make sense to me that if you're not living here, that you shouldn't need to pay taxes. That would make sense to me. But as my bosses say at work, as we deal with a lot of bureaucratic stuff in the Medicare world here with all the rules and regulations every year, it's when I make a joke, it's a joke. When the government makes a joke, it's a law. So that's kind of what we deal with on the rate, because most of the time you have these people all over the place, high ups, and right, they're making the rules for us peons, but they haven't been a peon in 30 years, 40 years, or never if they're rich, right? So when you're not us, and you're not walking through our shoes, but you're making rules and regulations for us, it's never going to be right. It's never going to be correct, right? And I think that's how Trump even got into office in general, right? Because he was a businessman. He wasn't a politician. That was his whole thing, right? And that's why people voted for him. Like, no more politicians. And I mean, at the end of the day, he's just like them, if not worse in most cases.
I mean,
All politicians, really.
I mean, I personally, from looking at all the proposals and bills out there since I've started diving deep into the tax coding stuff, my personal favorite law or proposal in Congress is HR 25, which is the fair tax proposal.
Okay.
And the reason I like that is it gets completely rid of the IRS and replaces it with a national sales tax. But to make it
30%,
fair,
right?
yeah, but to make it fair, it also includes a probate, so everyone gets like a small amount of money back, so basically you don't pay taxes on your first like 10,000 something dollars, basically up to the property level. You get reimbursed for your portion of the taxes that you would otherwise pay for that. So that's the only fair tax, and that's the only tax thing that, in my opinion, is truly fair. And if you don't want to pay taxes, you just don't buy stuff and you can invest your money. So your investments are not taxed. But if you decide you want to go and buy a new car or something like that, you would obviously pay taxes then. You would not
Yep.
pay taxes if you hire people. So it would encourage jobs. Overall, it sounds like the best tax proposal out there right now. And it also gets rid of the need for people to file a yearly tax return. It gets rid of the need for like accountants and all this nonsense.
Yeah. I mean, I am for now. Obviously, the thing that would suck, outside of that, is you put a lot of people who are accountants out of business probably because you don't have as many people filing taxes because the IRS is gone. But I think AI is probably going to take a lot of their jobs anyway. I mean, in most cases, you could probably literally go to ChatGPT, tell ChatGPT that you're a high level an accountant. Here's all my stuff, and do my taxes for me. And it probably would do it easily. But I agree with you. I think the abolishment of the IRS makes sense, and if they do the 30%, federal tax on everything. I mean, some things are going to be way more expensive, but you get to decide where your money goes, and not the government. I mean, look how many times the U.S. government has just lost money. I mean, you go to our military guys and they lost, what was it, $6 or $7 trillion? Like, oh yeah, we have no idea where it went.
I
No
mean,
clue.
it also reduces the amount of lobbying in Washington, D.C., because right now, a lot of people don't know this, but if you file your taxes and you pay H&R Block to file your taxes or your accountant, do you know what they do with the money you pay them?
No idea. Tax write-off?
Some of it actually goes straight to lobbying the Congress to keep your taxes complicated. So basically, it's like paying the mafia to protect you. In all honesty, because I mean, think about it. You're literally lobbying or paying a lobbyist to keep your taxes complicated, and that means that you need to pay the lobbyist more. H&R Block actually is a lobbying company, and they have lobbied millions to keep taxes complicated.
Doesn't shock me. I mean, they make millions off of all their stuff. I do like H&R Block has a free online thing, and that's actually what I use typically for my wifey. I do her taxes. Her taxes are really easy. And when I was before I had a business, I would do the same thing. But now, I have so many receipts and so much other shit, and I'm just like, this is just too much. I don't know, what I can write off, what I can't, I know taxes are going to be different this year because they increased certain things, and I mean, this is why people go to school, I guess, to do it, right? That's why accountants go to school for it, but too much shit.
Yeah, well, I know I mean, it's very complicated stuff. I know that. I mean, you do need to. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily the schooling, but I mean, I mean, if you look at it overall, there's so many complicated parts to the tax code to fully understand every nuance of it. You'd probably take 1,000 years. It's impossible to understand the tax code, and there's contradictions in the tax code. It's just a big mess.
Well, it's just like our law code as well, right? Federal law, state laws, whatever. They're all over the place. I've interviewed some lawyers. I mean, I interviewed a law firm in Texas, and they were talking about how, their divorce attorneys and kind of all the crazy stuff that they would have to deal with and some of the laws. Texas is a weird state, though. They actually tend to advocate and protect men more than most states, which doesn't surprise me because it's Texas. But there's just crazy things that people do and hide and do whatever they can to. You can't escape the tax man, right? I mean, look what happened to Wesley Snipes. He couldn't escape it. Let's talk a little bit about you personally, man. Your letter mentions challenges as an autistic person, right? How has that influenced the way you communicate and advocate, especially something as complicated as the tax code?
I mean, oddly enough, in some ways, I suspect that may have been what allowed me to spot the legal loophole that got me a lawyer, because apparently no one else had attempted to ask that question or if they could use a tax clinic abroad, or if they did, they never really got a hold of one. So I'm assuming that may have played a role. I know I definitely notice and spot things that most people don't. I think in my case, my autism, or well, they suspect autism. They're still getting a formal diagnosis, but they suspect that it's. I mean, I personally suspect that's probably why I was able to spot it, because I've noticed I'm able to spot and understand legal code a lot better than the average person. I know my reading comprehension's higher. My math skill's not as good. I can't remember dates as well, but in terms of understanding Latin and or understanding legalese, I'm really good at understanding that compared to the average person.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm good with numbers. That's the one thing I'm good at. I don't know if that's my superpower, but I remember my debit card number like it's my social security number. So I think everyone has their own little quirks too on top of it. So maybe you're, you know, supposed autism, right? Maybe connects a little bit of that to that quirk that every human kind of has. I feel like. What motivates you to keep advocating for this issue despite all the hurdles with bureaucratic crap that you had to deal with?
Well, I mean, part of it's just because I still have ongoing legal questions. Because, I mean, there is that government report that the U.S. government is suppressing, and I'd like to get that to Congress. And the fact that I'm the only taxpayer to have used a low income tax clinic outside the United States is not technically fair, in my opinion. So I want to resolve that, but I can't do that till I get that report to Congress. And because of how complicated this is, it's kind of tricky getting an actual reporter to cover it. So what I've been doing, well, right now I've got a few reporters I'm talking to, so I've made some progress there. But what I've been basically doing is reaching out to podcasters and other people, trying to share my story. I've done letters to the editors and papers all the way from to Miscaming, which is where I'm at now, district to Cleveland, Tennessee, and I'm just continuing to advocate.
I mean, it's all we can do, right? Especially because you still got stuff going on yourself. So,
I mean, if I didn't have
hopefully you can
ongoing
get that.
legal issues, it might be a different story, and I probably wouldn't be doing anything like this, or I wouldn't be as involved with it. I probably wouldn't be on this podcast right now. But because I still have legal questions that need to be answered, that only Congress can address, I have no choice but to continue to advocate until those questions are answered and resolved.
So as we start to wind down a little bit, tell me a little bit. So what, where are you at then? So if they suppress the report, are they saying that you owe them a ton of money since hasn't been filed technically, or what's the gist of that?
Technically, the IRS owes me money because
Yeah.
I got an $1,800 refund plus interest. The amount of interest they owe me is not correct because they add 3 years of interest that I'm supposed to be owed, but's not been added to the accounts. First problem. But as far as it goes in terms of like the advocating for the release of the report, I do have Freedom of Information Act documents and other things from the IRS that I got from a Reddit lawyer. But that Reddit lawyer, because there's going to be political fallout whenever this report hits Congress, they did not want their name tied to it. So I'm going to try not to have their name released publicly. I can't guarantee that someone won't leak it at the IRS or elsewhere, but I'm going to try not to leak it.
Interesting. So what do you hope to get when everything is said and done? You want your 1,800 plus interest and to just walk away, right? I mean, is that or, are you going to make someone pay for it?
The real problem is that job I applied for whenever I was using that tax clinic. I also applied for the Taxpayer Advocate Panel International position. And if I'm being honest, I'd like to know whether or not that's a constitutional crisis. I suspect it is based off how everyone at the IRS is acting toward me and based off like the 4 years I've got and everything. I suspect there may be a serious legal questions around that job. And that job could be a constitutional crisis. As far as I can tell, I really don't have the answers to that one, but I do know I have a lot of questions about that job posting and about this report that I'm just trying to get answers to.
Yeah, and good luck when it comes to the government, right? The odds of you getting the answers, me and you might be I might be way more gray than I am now by the time you get at least a fraction of your answer. But I guess, my hope for you is that you get what you need and hopefully they pay you your money.
I'm pretty sure I'll get the answers. I've got reporters working on it, or at least showing interest. I know there's one at Bloomberg, and there's one at Politico that's shown interest. Plus, I'm showing up on more podcasts. I think it will eventually hit Congress, and I suspect it will be front page news when it does, these legal issues. But I just can't know the timing of it.
Well, hopefully it's sooner rather than later for you. But looking forward, what would you like my listeners or any new listeners, especially those that are living not abroad, to take away from your story?
Well, one thing I would recommend is always check your IRS transcripts and make sure that they don't flag you as possible IDT refund fraud. And if they do, fix it. You do not trust the IRS to just process your return when you send it in. Always baby step the IRS because they don't know what they're doing. That's been my experience.
Yeah, and always have a copy of your filing as well, just in case, because you never know when they're gonna lose it.
Yeah. So you can't trust the IRS to do their job.
That's most of the government, unfortunately. But look, man, it was a pleasure having you on. Is there anything else you'd like to plug before we get out of here today?
I mean, if you know any other podcasts that would have me on, let me know or reach out to me.
Awesome. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. We'll put your contact info too if you got an email or anything, and we'll get that in there for you. My podcast is Drink Clock Pod on all socials, Drink Clock Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Hopefully everyone took away some interesting tax info that I honestly didn't know even existed. So we appreciate that coming from Gabriel. And hey, man, hopefully you don't freeze your ass off up there.
It's definitely cold up here.
All right, man. You have a great night. Thanks for coming on.
You too.
On a stormy night where legends unfold, there's a podcast that's breaking the mold. Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's fly. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more. We're ready for more. With a mix of folklore and rebel cheer, we'll guide you through tales of whiskey and beer. From Irish shores to lands afar, grab your friends, it's time to